Speaking of headsets, is that a new headset you got, Rick?
I've had this one for years. It's a piece of junk.
And now it's time for us to digest the lowest rung of pop culture so you don't have to. You're tuned in to the all-new CultureCast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the all-new CultureCast. I'm Nick, and with me tonight I have whoever wants to talk over each other.
Rick?
Cousin Charles.
Mike?
We need to plan this like eventually. Every week
Yeah.
I think that. I never say it, but that's okay. That's what editing's for.
Just
Yeah,
need a point.
Hey, I hit my cue. I'm not to blame here.
With modern editing techniques, we can do whatever we want in movies.
Yeah.
I feel like since I'm the newest addition, I should probably go last.
Sure, if that's what you want to do.
All right.
We have no rules here.
I'm okay with that.
But anyway, we had a bit of a detour last week by talking about South Park, but we're back on our documentary trilogy with the third one here off of Netflix, High Score, which talks about the early development of video games from the late 70s to early 90s, give or take a couple of years.
Yeah.
So this was this was your idea, if I'm not mistaken.
Was it?
I thought it was. I thought
okay.
you brought it up.
I think I
And
did
then-
bring it up when we were.
Is he to blame for this?
Well, we have Rick's
Uh,
review.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because I had I think when we were doing the previous two working on the previous two installments, I think it was something I was watching kind of in between. Because it's kind of like it's a pretty easy watch. You know, there's some documentaries where they're definitely a bit of a slog to get through, but these are kind of like the perfect length for these types of Netflix documentaries. Not over an hour, but not too short where it's just right in that sweet spot.
right.
But yeah,
So-
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, so we all sat down and watched it. I think, Mike, you had already watched it because you were familiar with it. I was not at the time, but over the past, I don't know, 3 weeks, I finally got around to watching all 6 episodes because
Now,
that's how long
did we say what it was yet? What's the name of this?
Yeah, High Score with the video games. Yeah, I think we went over that.
Yeah, we got that.
All right, perfect.
So, yeah. So, what were your guys' initial thoughts? Rick, let's start with you because you had a. I don't know if you're doing it in jest or not with Cuz's like blaming him for this.
No, I think it was great. I'm trying to. I watched it when it originally came out, so it's been a little bit. So maybe Mike, you're really good at kind of breaking things down and explaining kind of what happened at a high
I
level.
am?
Yeah.
I think you got me confused with somebody else.
No,
I'm
you're
not
really
good
good at
at
this. What was the first episode or two again? They started off on the on like Pong,
Like the arcades and
original
everything,
Atari,
Space
the
Invaders.
arcades.
Yeah, and Atari, which I don't know about you guys. I actually didn't have Atari growing up. We had
Really?
some knockoff system, and I don't even remember what it was called, but we definitely had a Pac-Man game that wasn't Pac-Man and a couple others. I tried to look it up today, and I can't find it.
Would you know what the controller looks like or anything?
No, not really. Actually, no, I can't really. I just remember it kind of looks like Pac-Man, but I know it was not Pac-Man.
It was Puck. It was Puckman.
Yes.
Legally
There you
distinct.
And it wasn't Casey Muncham or whatever they had on the show.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty good. Yeah, but I mean, how do you even review this? I mean, almost like, I guess you go through kind of like what, what was our first video game, I guess.
Well,
So
I had played video games, but I didn't get a system. Well, I had a Game Boy. I got that when I was in 3rd grade or so, I want to say. But in terms of consoles, I didn't get one until the Sega Genesis, and it was a couple years into its lifespan when I had gotten it. I
Wow.
think I was in junior high or so at the time. My memory fails me on the exact dates, but But
Did you play
yeah,
PC games at all, or was it nothing? Just Game Boy and then Genesis?
it was just Game Boy and Genesis. My folks were really I wouldn't call it strict when it came to the video games, but they didn't want me like addicted and always doing it. So when I had my Game Boy, which I had a ton of games for the Game Boy, but like I'd always have to ask permission to make sure I play it. And 9 times out of 10, they'd always say, "Yeah, you can go and play it." But um, so it was just there. My folks were really focused on that, and video games, like it was fun for me when I was younger, when I'd be at my friends or something like that. But it wasn't something that I had to like. I gotta have a Nintendo or something. Like the Game Boy gift was a surprise gift that I got. And my parents were kind of annoyed with the person who gave it to me because they
Oh
didn't
my God.
ask. Well, they weren't against it, but they wished this person asked my folks permission to get it. Kind of
Yeah.
like one of those sort of things, which I get. But
You
yeah.
remember what
So
games you got with it or anything like that, or what year that might have been?
um,
It came out in '89.
it came out in '89. I know I was in third grade. Um, it came with Tetris and Super Mario Land. I know those were at least two of the first games I had,
Yeah.
which like I love Tetris. I'm a big Mario fan to begin with. I think that's my go-to franchise with certain things. My wife and I would play through the new Super Mario Brothers on the Wii and then the Wii U. So definitely a big Mario fan over here. But I had a bunch of other games. I got rid of a ton of games when I was in high school to like GameStop to get some money. I kept the ones I really liked, but
Yeah.
now my Game Boy, I still have the brick, as they used to call it, the brick, and it still kind of works.
What was your
Uh,
favorite game on it that you had,
um,
if you had one?
Donkey Kong. The Donkey Kong 94 is as it's known in
Oh, where it starts with original Donkey Kong and then goes into all sorts of crazy levels.
yeah, I love that game, and I've played it again multiple times over the past 25 years or so. It's just so much fun. I loved it. I liked Mario Land 2 is pretty good, as was
Yep.
Wario Land. I loved Wario Land.
Yep.
Not so much the sequels, but that first one was great. But and Tetris is always a big one for me as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. Who wants to go next? What was your first video game system?
I'll take this up. So I think the first system that I own that like my parents got me was probably I was always a little bit late to the party. Like all my friends had video game consoles way before me. I was kind of like when everybody was getting when everybody was just getting like the GameCube. I finally got like an N64. So
What year were you born? I was born in '82. I
93.
think most of us were '82 or '83. You were '93?
93, yeah.
That's interesting. So like definitely a whole decade later than
Yeah.
the rest of us. So it's interesting perspective.
Yeah, because like I said, I know my first console that I was ever get I got. I can't remember if it was a Christmas or a birthday gift. It was an Nintendo 64. I remember it was one of the later releases of it because it was green. It was like the kind of like
Yeah, those are
where it
worth
was
a lot if you still have it around.
it's somewhere buried in the my dad's catacombs.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
if you have the box, whoa, that could be some money.
if they're I was gonna
Start
say
digging.
I'll have to do
If
that
you have a
next
garage sale, let me know. I'll come over. I'll
Yeah.
check it. Did I say it was worth a lot? I said probably not really anything. I'll take off your hand.
I'll give you $3.
Perfect. I'll tell
Yeah,
you that.
Rick's not joking about that. He's never forgiven me for getting rid of a bunch of my Sega CD games.
Oh my God! Don't even talk about it. I'll hang up on you. Go on.
But first video game, like I said, I can't remember because like I said, there were a lot of games I played a lot at my friend's house beforehand. But in terms of the first big one that I owned that I really played a lot, I would probably say it would be the first Pokemon Stadium on the N64.
You love Pokemon. I remember that.
Yeah, everybody. I mean again, back in the day when I was a wee lad, that was, I mean, that's what every kid was into that. That was the go-to. That was the go-to. I don't want to say currency, but go-to thing that everybody was into. And then at least in my school, and I think probably a lot of other kids' schools, if they were born in that kind of that era, it was Pokemon. Then it turned into Yu-Gi-Oh, and then it turned into Magic the Gathering. And then I think a lot of that it started becoming. After that, I think a lot of us got a little too. It became more card games and stuff like that were more niche, or you know what I mean. But that's
So
at least.
did you ask for a 64 or I mean, why
I
not
think
PlayStation?
I think because a lot of my I think because it was a lot of kids I was friends with, they had an N64. I
Mhm.
think only maybe one. Yeah, I think my one neighbor Jack. I think he had a PlayStation and a place. He had at least a PlayStation. He definitely had a PlayStation 2, but I can't. But I thought he had an original PlayStation as well. Um, and I was gonna say like nowadays, again, I still play some video games, but it is very much kind of like if I am, it's I don't really there's some I usually it's usually just like, hey, I maybe got like an hour or two on a Saturday night, but it's like it's not anything where like, okay, I'm getting into a really deep campaign or anything like that. It's just more of the it's more like, okay, I got an hour or two to spare. Here's how I'm gonna waste my time. Here's how I'm gonna spend my time.
Right.
Which we know that there's a lot of games that have people that, again, I have a lot of my friends who do have. They're like, oh, you need to play this or you need to play that. Like the one game I've been I want to try to I should probably try to get was the Spider-Man game they came out with on PS4. So
Mhm.
I heard that was supposed to be really good, but yeah, that's kind of like my earliest experiences with video games, kind of like where I currently stand.
That's awesome. Mike, what about you? What was you don't remember the Pac-Man, but what do you remember was your first video game system?
Well, I know my first legit system was Nintendo, and it was the one that came out with the Power Pad. So you had
Oh
the
wow.
three different games in one cartridge. You had Mario, Duck Hunt, and I forget what the racing one was for the Power Pad. Um, and I don't know about the rest of you guys. I was horrible at video games, so Game Genie was my best friend. I would use that all the time on every single video game.
Oh my God.
But I think the game, like, I never beat the first Mario game. I mean, I liked it, but it was I was terrible at it. I was obsessed with Duck Hunt. I just
So
like shooting the ducks.
did you ask for Nintendo or was this random? Did you know somebody had it? Were you like blown away when you saw Mario Brothers? Were you just
Yeah,
like,
I
yep,
have
this is
some
just a
friends
toy?
who had it, and I remember playing Mario, and I didn't know what to do, and I got killed by the first Goomba right away, and he's like, you need to press the button there, and I'm like, oh, okay. I would like to
Okay.
say it got better from there, but it didn't.
Mike was 11 years old when this happened.
Actually, I
It
was
was
21, but
it was yesterday.
Okay.
It's all downhill from there.
but
Okay.
as far as like, I think one of my favorite video games for Nintendo was Darkwing Duck. I love that game. I thought it had like the best video game music ever. And again, it was another game I had to use Game Genie for because I was just not good at.
Yeah, that's
But
awesome.
then, yeah, and then of course we got to the later consoles. Like I think I got Super Nintendo before I got Sega.
Oh wow.
That was the
That's
next one I
interesting.
got, and that was mostly because I wanted Street Fighter 2,
Nice.
which this documentary talks about.
Yeah.
Yep.
I so I started even earlier than you guys. So I got my uncle and aunt must have had the Atari 2600 when they were younger. So at some point it was just kind of brought down from the attic or whatever. I don't remember them bringing it down. I just remember it just suddenly being there and I was like playing it and it was very odd because the games are just so it's hard to understand what they represent and what's going on. They're so short. It's just a strange kind of system, but it was fun. I remember playing Asteroids and Kaboom and all sorts of stuff. And one day it died, and there was like a video game crash kind of going on. So it was like, all right, well, there just are no more video games, right? You were so young, you didn't know, like, okay, can we just go to the store and buy another one? We did go to the store and buy one Atari game once. I barely remember it all. But then when the system died, we basically just throw the thing in the garbage. And then a few like years or months or whatever passed, and I remember going over to a friend's house, walked in, and he's playing this futuristic looking box and playing Super Mario Brothers. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it looks so real. And I don't really remember much about what I thought about it, but I did get one for Christmas, and it was amazing, man. I mean, Mario Brothers was just crazy. I'd never seen anything like it. Yeah, it was out of control. Yeah, so Nintendo was the first real system we bought after the Atari.
So this documentary, to kind of tie all this back in, did you guys go? I don't know if we were at the age for this, like if this was like phasing out, but they talk about how popular the arcades were. And this, of course, was in the early '90s or early '80s. By the time I think we became like arcade age, they're starting to be phased out or not as popular. Did you ever go to the arcades as like a regular thing at all when you were younger?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially when Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat were out. I was obsessed with those two games. I couldn't get enough of those. But as far as arcades go, yeah, those were kind of the only two games that I would play nonstop.
I mean, we didn't really have an arcade place. I mean, there was arcades randomly strung around, like you go to a restaurant, there'd be an arcade maybe.
Yeah, even some grocery stores sometimes have them too.
I would say probably Chuck E. Cheese is the first place you'd go where there's like arcades, and then later, like it was funny because like as we grew up, like new places came out that were more mature that allowed us to keep coming back. Like I think after Chuck E. Cheese, Hollywood Park was around here. Do you guys ever go to Hollywood Park?
Never heard of it.
Oh, really? It still exists, I think. And that was like tons of arcades. I mean, it had like 2 floors of arcades. It was nuts. So we had birthday parties there. And after that, there was, what was the place that's out in like Tinley Park? And I can't remember what the name of it is. I think it's closed down now, but it was like a huge arcade place. And they had like really advanced arcades, like they had all the top-notch stuff over there, and they had go-karts and everything like that. And that was really cool too. But a lot of birthday parties, I would say.
The closest place I can think of in terms of like that I would define as like, because I think kids my age, I think we're like the last real generation that had arcades as traditionally defined, with the big cabinets and everything like that. I don't think it's still around, although I could be wrong. So where I grew up at, there was a place called Caesarland, kind of like Little Caesars are trying to get into the Chuck E. Cheese game.
Never heard of it.
It was in a strip mall with, it was like next to like an Ace Hardware, and there was a Jewel at the other end of the mall. It was by Oriole Park. It wasn't too far away. I remember that's where a lot, everybody at the school I went to, a lot of kids had their like birthday parties there. I remember they had like, I think that's where they actually had, an actual like, there was a couple different sections. I remember there was one section that was just arcade games. I remember the one I remember playing there a lot was I think Metal Slug. It was like
that's a really good one.
Yeah, that was I think it was on a Neo Geo or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Neo
was
Geo.
Yeah. See, I know words too.
No, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that system talked about in a good 10 years.
Mike, did you have that system? If you had the system, I'll kill you.
No, we did not have this.
Oh my gosh. The thing
I
was
had
like
a Neo Geo.
$1,000. That thing.
I think Rick's just looking for an excuse to murder me tonight for some reason. I have no idea why.
Rick, just so you know, I had a Neo Geo. My parents like, we don't need this, and they just put it in a garage sale for $10. And
Oh my gosh! Don't even tell me
no, I'm
that.
kidding. That didn't happen. That didn't happen.
Well, Nick, it was nice knowing you. I'm sorry.
Well, it was crazy because the Neo Geo came out and like you could buy the system hook up to the TV and you could buy the cartridges that basically were the same games in the arcade, like identical, like no difference. But the cartridges were like physically huge and held tons of information, and they were expensive. They was about $200 to $300 per game.
That's
It was nuts.
insane.
I didn't know anybody that owned it, but like Funko Land, if you remember going there,
I
they
remember
sometimes
Funko
would
Land.
have them on the shelf, like the boxes for them and stuff. And I was like, oh my god, there's something you never thought about owning. Like only like the 5 richest kings of Europe could own this thing.
Okay, I just looked up what a Neo Geo cartridge looks like. This looks like it could be a lethal weapon. Like you could chuck this at somebody's head and cause some serious damage here.
Oh yeah, it's nuts.
This thing's
Everyone's
huge.
googling. Everyone's googling. I don't have one on the
Yeah.
shelf. I can't even show you. It's too expensive. I still can't afford it.
Look like this. It looks like it's like they're putting it side by side with like a Nintendo cartridge. It's like a size of like a good book,
Yeah.
a very thick, heavy book.
It's almost as
Um,
big as the like arcade control pads too.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, just one game is more than we could afford. You know what I mean? Let alone the system and a game, you know?
Did you throw
I
out
remember
your
it had
back having to lift
reputation.
that thing?
What's that, Nick?
I remember. Yeah, I've never really saw Neo Geo in person, but I remember at the time, like Neo Geo when I was a kid, it was like almost a mythical thing because you had like Nintendo, but this Neo Geo was supposedly better, but it was like super expensive, and it was like, is it a real thing or are people just making it up? You know, it's just one
Yeah.
of those. But
I'll really quick to go back to the arcade thing. I'll tell you a sad Rick birthday story. So I don't remember what birthday it was for, what year, but we went to this like place that was like you had a bunch of arcades, like tons of them, like probably like 40 arcades, and you could do birthday parties there. So I was like, hey, we should have my birthday party here. So I think we like a month or two goes by, and we go, and I have all my friends. We go to this birthday party, and we get there, and like you know how like in strip malls, like they'll take over like how many storefronts do you want to like combine together?
Right.
Well, they must have sold off half the storefront. So basically, the entire section where all the arcades were was gone now, and all they had was like 3 arcades in this place. And it was like it was a disaster. So that was a
Worst
sad
birthday ever.
It was.
just to touch on the arcades, I saw this on a WGN used to have a show called See Chicago. It's no longer in production, and I'm fine because the show was interesting, but the host was a little obnoxious. But one time they talked about this arcade, Galloping Ghost, in Brookfield, and
Yes.
what the story behind this is you pay like a $20 entry fee, but all the games are free to play all day, and
Yeah,
you can
I've
be
been
there.
Mm-hmm. I have too.
And it's awesome. And we should
I've
probably
been
all
wanting to
go.
go.
We should all go when COVID's over.
Yeah.
It's epic, man, because they really care about it. So they're always like working and tinkering on like new arcades and trying to put new arcades in, and like it feels like it's like a maze. It's just like building after building after building that they just add on, and they just smash all these arcades in. And there are, I would say, probably 80% of the arcades you've never even heard of. You know?
Oh, I bet I was last year at C2E2. They had a booth, not a booth, but a display, and I ended up talking to the owner of the place for a little while, and I could see the passion coming from his mind about how he felt about the arcade and everything, and or the arcade, and how he almost felt it's almost a lost art, but
Yeah.
so he wants to try to preserve these not only for people to play, but So I do
What's
want to go there
well,
eventually, but
what's a shame though is like they have so many arcades, but there's still arcades missing that you kind of want. Like you go in there, and if you're like, where's Virtual Fighter? Where's Virtual Cop? Where's this? Where's that? They don't have it. So it's like there's
although I
still.
guess they're trying to find new ones all the time.
Yeah, I don't
So
know how they have room. I mean, it's literally packed to the gills.
When me and my wife went there, we just played the Simpsons arcade the entire time, I think.
Yeah.
That was the only one we played.
Well, that's great because you can go in there and you can just like beat the game without having to worry about it. But to be honest with you, something is taken away a little bit when you can just go, okay, more lives, more lives, more lives, and it's not like you're gambling away your money. Like, okay, how much can I afford? And I really can't get killed because I'm trying to play off this quarter. Something a little bit lost when it's
Yeah, I remember my pants being super heavy with quarters in each pockets.
Yeah. Oh, and the countdown starts, and you accidentally start hitting a button, and the countdown's going down, 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 down. And you're like, shit, and you're like trying to pull out a quarter. Oh my god. Like you don't have one, and I feel like it's like a George Costanza. You're like, who's got a quarter?
One of my favorite arcade memories was when I was playing Street Fighter 2. I was playing against this older kid, and I completely kicked his ass. And then I admitted that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just pressing random buttons, which led to his friends making fun of him, which made me happy.
You didn't have a Game Genie with you?
No, not that day.
I see.
So let's bring it back to the documentary a little bit here. In the first episode, they talk about, and I found this fascinating, how it seemed like a lot of these people making these video game companies were like they tinkered with it in high school or they dropped out of college. Like there's this one, and I wish they talked more about how they did this, but this one group of kids, I shouldn't say kids, but college kids who somehow were able to bring in arcades or an arcade game to like the different dorms on campus. And they got like a ton of money from it. Like I'm wondering, like, how did they get the arcade in the first place? I don't think they went into that, but if I'm not mistaken, that group also made the accelerator boards that would make the games difficult for be more of a challenge. Like I think it was like Pac-Man that they did that too. And
It was.
or was it Space
I think
Invaders?
I think it was Space Invaders first, or some sort of Missile Control. Missile Control. I think is what it was. Is what it was first. But I think eventually they did do that other stuff. I think Mission Control was the first game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, because the first episode, I will say the first episode is it's very short. It's very kind of like, I kind of like documentaries that are a little bit, that aren't necessarily sagas. There is something nice about because it is a short documentary, but at the same time they're also compacting a lot of history, especially the big. I mean, they went from here's how arcade cabinets came to be all the way through the video game crash which is a huge era.
Well, I like how they pick a few things and then go into pretty good detail on those few items. Yeah.
There was one of the reasons I was kind of at least for that first episode, I was kind of interested to see what else they would go into is, and this is kind of one of the things that got me wanted me to talk about this series was because it kind of brought up another movie that I had watched. This is not recently at all, so this is rewind to 3-4 years ago. There was another video game movie on Netflix that was basically just that first episode, but expanded to feature length. More specifically, it was called. I pulled it up on my Google. It was called Atari Game Over because it was based It talked about Atari's rise and fall with the kind of like the framing device being, hey, we're going to that dump in New Mexico. We're going to try actually see if they buried like a bunch of those
the ET games.
Yeah, because that was like a. Well, because I don't know about you guys, but you guys heard of that, and I'm surprised they sort of brushed over that in this documentary. But that's like almost like a modern day urban legend, or it was for a long time. People were like, oh yeah, that this game sucked so hard that they had to, instead of just trying to sell these games, they decided to just bury it deep in a desert, like late at night. and I think it was until like, when did it say? Uh, let's see. I'm trying to remember when that was.
Well, do you know that they made so many of those? They ordered more ET cartridges than Atari systems existed
Mhm.
at that time, thinking that ET was going to be so popular that everybody was going to buy one, and people were going to go out and buy an Atari system if they didn't have one just to play the ET game. And the
Yeah.
game was horrible. So
My favorite
Didn't
part
it
of
say he
that,
made it in like 6 weeks or something like that? Some real
yeah,
quick turnaround time.
yeah. For
yeah,
6 weeks, it's not bad, but
and then he met with Steven Spielberg, and Steven Spielberg said, "Can you make this more like Pac-Man?" He's like, "No, I can't."
yeah, that was really good.
We're beyond the point of no return.
I mean, I find I've read some books about Atari and stuff, and the culture, and Atari fascinates me, and it feels very much like the early days of Apple, Atari and Apple together, and I really think that they could make a movie, like a good quality movie, just about Atari and its early days,
I
you
I could
know?
I could definitely see that because definitely the vibe you get from just like the stories you hear about is like, again, it's mid 70s. They're like, sort of that counterculture, like, hey, we're going to create a business. It's all about, it's all about the artist, man. We're going
Yeah,
to, and then of course, you get that, we got to make more. We got to, of course, becomes a case of quantity over quality. And again, the big thing, of course, is the video game crash, which again, kind of, I mean, it gets addressed in this documentary, but it is such a little, that's probably my first thing. My biggest critique about the first episode is it is compacting so much of that history
hmm
into like 40 minutes. That's like, this was actually pretty significant in terms of like, this sort of culture or this sort of aspect of our entertainment. Um, but that was my main disappointment, is that there wasn't really going too much into the urban, kind of like the urban legend of the Atari dump. I can't even remember if they brought it up at all in the now that I think about it, because I think I watched that probably the first episode. Like, I caught it, this entire show kind of like in like spurts, but I can't remember if like the first episode, if they actually mentioned the dump at all. I don't think they did.
I don't think they did either. I'm trying to remember, but I'm pretty sure they didn't, because I think that would have stuck out to me.
Yeah, because that's like that's not the craziest part, but that's like that's like a really fun detail of that overall story of like, which I think is what kind of makes it such a. I think as a kid, when you hear about that, it's like, oh, that's so weird, or that's so messed up.
I just think to work for Atari back in its heyday would have been amazing. Like to just, you're just like this, hippie counterculture, but you're, really smart and good at programming, and and you just come in and you just, you can work at night. They don't even care about the hours. They're
Yeah.
As long as they got
partying.
their work done.
Hmm.
You come in high and maybe you program better, who knows, and you, so you bust out these games, they're just, selling millions of copies, and I don't know, it's pretty cool.
For me, I would have rather worked with the guys who worked on Doom. They seemed like my type of people,
Yeah,
just blasting metal
Yeah, I
in a
read that
dark
book too.
room.
That was good.
that actually kind of skipping ahead to, because I think that's in the last episode, because John Romero and the whole id Software team. I mean, their whole story. I mean, I would say
Jack
that's
Miller movie.
yeah. They're well, again, they were like, they were kind of like rock stars at the time, as
Yeah.
and they kind of sort of conveniently skipped over the part where, John Romero sort of like shot himself in the foot with like a Daikatana.
Oh,
Oh my
jeez.
God.
Yeah, and they sort of ended their story on like a high point, instead of like, oh yeah, everything went to crap when John Romero's head got way too big.
Oh, jeez.
What was it? What's the Greek story where the guy goes so high he burns his wings in the sun or whatever? I mean, that was definitely John Romero right there.
You mean Kid
Icarus?
Icarus?
Kid
Yeah.
Icarus, yeah.
I was thinking,
Um,
or Pit. That's
yeah, that could be it.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah, I mean, I read the book and like, he goes and, creates his own, company and they're trying to make, this game that's supposed to be amazing. And what's so fascinating is like when it's like Steve Jobs and Wozniak, right? Like Wozniak would have never created Apple. Steve would have never created the technology to have created Apple in the first place, right? They needed each other. And in id Software's case, you basically needed, both people in order to build something amazing. And when you lose like half of your brain like that, you're just not able to operate.
Because I think the last game I remember that John Carmack, he was like the programmer. It was like, God, what was it? It was like, I want to say Rust, but I don't think that's right. Yeah,
Rage?
that's exactly. Yeah, Rage. That's exactly it. Because that was kind of like it. I remember because I was still I'm still into video games, but not nearly as much as I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I remember with the hype for that game, they're like John Carmack's back, and it was like, I think it was like there was a lot of hype for it, like, oh yeah, it's going to have new technologies and this and that. And I think the game was kind of.
It.
I think I never. I don't think I ever really played it. There was a lot of reviews. I remember hearing about it, but I remember it was kind of like it was. More of the story was very sort of mediocre. So it's kind of like sort of springboarding off what you were saying, Rick. It's kind of like you almost need, for every great creative duo, you almost need someone who has a technical genius but lacks that one little creative element. They need a creative genius someone who's really creative but maybe not as the most technically proficient.
Yeah, because they had multiple times where like, John Romero would want to do all this crazy stuff, and then John Carmack would say we have to pull it back or else we're never going to ship. And he would work on the technology, and then John Romero would work on like the level design, and those type of simpler games, Wolfenstein, straight to the point shooter, Doom, straight to the point shooter, Quake, straight to the point shooter. Those were really great and worked really well at the time and helped move the bar for like graphics and some gameplay changes, like this idea like, hey, I can look all around in real 3D now in Quake versus it was like 2D in Doom.
And death matches.
And death matches, all that stuff. Like you basically like we can't go off and do all this crazy stuff if we already have a lot to do, you know what I mean? But then when John Romero goes off and creates his own company, he's trying to do everything in the kitchen sink, and then just nothing works out,
Yep.
Very fascinating. I'd love to see a movie about it.
That would make a good movie.
Yeah.
I'd see it.
I think my favorite, I guess, battle, and again, this would make a really good movie, and it was probably my favorite part of the documentary is the Sega versus Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was fascinating. The guy tracked down the other guy on vacation or something like that. It just popped out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. What's his name? Tom
Kalinske.
Tom Kalinske. Yeah, the Japanese Sega president or whatever tracked down Tom Kalinske like in Hawaii or something on the beaches. Convinced him to basically like head Sega of America. And I find that all very fascinating because he really saved Sega in America because I mean I had a friend who had the Sega Genesis pretty early, but you're so young, it's hard to remember like what year was it, what was going on, because we had no internet or anything like that, so everything would just seem very random. It's like, oh, there are games out now, you know what I mean? Like you didn't even know. But he had a bunch of games and stuff, so it might have been right before Sonic he had this, but I didn't know anybody else that had it. But Tom Kalinske coming in saying, okay, we're gonna drop the price from $189 to $150. We're gonna include Sonic. We're gonna basically make Sega the cool kid and make fun of Nintendo. I mean, all of it was genius.
And I think with the other thing is like, which, and again, maybe a lot of this is us having a little bit of nostalgia for it, but objectively, you look at it like, oh, this is this is such like a corporate tactic. Like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. But it's like when you're experiencing, I think, as a kid and kind of seeing it in practice, it feels so very organic. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel forced. Like, I don't know why, but for some reason, I'm thinking of Poochie the dog.
Right.
Where in many ways you could argue Sonic is that, but in other ways it's like, yeah, no, that's just who the character is. There's something where it's like, it's trying, but it's also not trying. You know what I mean? Where it's like it's trying to be the opposite of Mario, but at the same time it's very distinctly, it's not trying to go too over the top. It's just it's original enough where it's where people won't say, oh, it's just trying to copy this other thing. Like it's like you're subconsciously know it's copying it, but consciously you're like, oh yeah, it's its own different entity.
So the Genesis was the next system I owned after Nintendo, and I basically took all my birthday money, Christmas money, everything I could scrape together, and my mom took me to Kohl's. We bought it from Kohl's. Very interesting places you could buy electronics back in the day.
Yeah.
I think it was 150. Came with Sonic, and I don't know if I had played Sonic or not. Like I said, my friend had the Genesis, and we played like, I don't know, some of the earlier games, like Toe Jam and Earl, Ghostbusters. I mean, there was some really cool stuff on there. I was like, I gotta have this. It's just so cool. And I remember hooking it up and then just blasting through the first Sonic level, and I was like, I've never seen anything move so fast. It's so colorful, big, bright, like objects on the screen. I mean, it was amazing, man. Video games were really cool because they showed how fast technology was moving. Like, especially like now you have a console generation that lasts for like 8 or 10 years, but back then it was like there's a new video game system coming out like every year, or maybe multiple systems coming out every year, and it was always like you're seeing how much better it was, and it was very obvious, like, wow, technology is really moving fast.
Yeah. What's interesting, like back then when it was still like kind of like the Wild Wild West when it came to consoles,
Yeah.
you had like your generation of consoles. Like a console will be released like every year from, like we are saying, from these different companies. Like now, in order to compete, which is pretty much, you have like Sega, I'm not say Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo are the three that are remaining. Their new consoles usually release within a year of one another, just so they can compete with one another, whether or not
Yeah.
they're ready to go or not. Sometimes you get one, like the Switch got an early start, and that mostly did to the relative failure of the Wii U. But like right now, the what do they call it? Xbox One? Is that what they're calling the new one? Or
Series
I
X.
don't know.
No, it's
Okay.
Xbox Series X. The Xbox One is the.
Is that the one that's currently out?
I think so, and that's what's supposed
Okay.
to.
I can't keep track of it,
I
of what
can't
they're
either.
all called. But
No.
like the new Xbox One and the new PlayStation One are expected to launch
Within days
within
of
the
each
next
other.
couple of, yeah, and it's
Genesis came
all
out
these,
in '89. Super Nintendo came out in '91. I mean, big. That's a big difference.
yeah.
I remember for me, I got Sega for Christmas, and it's because my dad got me that and Sega CD because he thought this would be the latest groundbreaking thing. He was kind of right.
Wow.
I loved Sega CD, and
Wow.
my favorite game for Sega CD was Double Switch, and that's the first game I ever beat legitimately without any cheat codes.
That's amazing. What do you know what year or what games you got when you got it for Christmas or anything?
I think Sewer Shark was the first game I got with that. Sewer Shark and Dracula.
Did your Sega CD sit next to the Genesis or was it underneath it?
Next to it. So it was my Sega was the
Oh, too.
smaller console. It was the smaller model.
Nice.
It was still a pain to put together too, I think.
You got that after Super Nintendo or this was next after Nintendo?
After. I got it after Super Nintendo.
Nice.
And I remember that because I had Mortal Kombat for Super Nintendo, and I was pissed off because Sega had the violent version, but
Yeah.
Super Nintendo really didn't. It had a cheat code where it would turn your sweat into red dots. That was their version of the cheat code, or of the blood code. But
Yep.
Sega had the official, like the real bloody, gory cheat code, and I still remember it. ABACABB.
Oh my God.
I have no idea why I still remember that after all these years, but I
He
still
can't even remember his
remember
social
it.
security number, but he remembers that.
I know. I will remember that first.
What did you
Was-
ask for Super Nintendo? How did you get that first? What happened there?
I don't remember the circumstances, but I think I also got that for Christmas too. But the main thing for me was I really wanted Street Fighter 2. So I was obsessed with Street Fighter 2. That was my main game.
Well, that came out
And-
on Nintendo first. I mean, that's why.
Right. And I think at the time when I still had Nintendo, I was still at a young enough age where I couldn't comprehend or understand the fact that Street Fighter 2 was never coming out for Nintendo because you couldn't, not with the graphics or anything. And I remember asking my parents, "Oh, can you get me Street Fighter for Nintendo?" And they did. It was Street Fighter 2000, which is not the same thing as Street Fighter 2.
Oh man,
You fight aliens, and it's not a fighting game.
you
But,
must have been so confused. You're like, what the hell's this?
I was very disappointed by it, and it was a hard game too. But no, I just Super Nintendo. My go-to game was Street Fighter 2, and of course I had to get the Championship Edition because I wanted to play as the bosses.
So
Because
did you still smash all the buttons, or did you know combos, or what?
I eventually learned the combos, especially for Mortal Kombat. You had to; they were really complicated.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah,
And,
I had the Genesis for a while, and then the Super Nintendo came out. I didn't even know it came out. I mean, like, this is the thing, is like without the internet and stuff, and you're young, like you have no idea when things come out. It's just like you go to the store and there's just a Super Nintendo there, and you're like, what the hell is that? I need that. There's Mario, and he looks really good. And I was like, man, I'm never gonna be able to save up for that thing. It's so expensive. And then I remember being in the car and my aunt saying, there's a place that they're opening up where you can sell video games and buy used video games. It's called Funkoland.
Funkoland. I remember.
Take me to this pleasure palace. We need to go there. And I was gonna sell the Genesis there, but my aunt ended up buying it off me. I took the money and some other money, and then went to Omni. You guys remember Omni, the grocery store?
Mm-hmm.
Went to Omni, bought a Super Nintendo there, and it was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, Super Mario World, all that stuff. Love that stuff. But yeah, the whole, I remember Sega versus Nintendo. I remember like going around school and on the bus with a notebook asking people Sega versus Super Nintendo and taking like a poll because I was just interested to see what everyone thought. You know?
What the survey say?
I don't
So you were a
remember.
pollster
It was pretty
early
much time.
on.
I was a pollster. I was gathering data.
I remember in the documentary when they were talking about the console wars, which apparently there's a on CBS All Access. There's a documentary that specifically talks about those console wars with the Sega versus Nintendo. But I remember those commercials with the Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember one for the Sega Game Gear, and where someone has a Game Boy-like handheld, and he takes a hammer and smashes his head so he can pretend like he's seeing color. And he's like, "Don't do that. Just get the Game Gear, and you get color." And da 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 da.
So
Failing to say it takes like
do you know the guy that hits his head in that commercial is an actor you may recognize? I think he was on like Breaking Bad or something like that, or some.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forget what it is. Like if you bring it up and watch it for a second, I bet you'll recognize the character immediately. You know, go bring it up on YouTube and see if you can look at it really quick. Yeah, I can't remember what his name is, but it's very fascinating. Everyone's YouTubing right now.
yeah, everyone's YouTube. Like, oh. Go
See, I'm
on.
afraid to look it up because I'm afraid I'm gonna accidentally close Skype or something.
So I got the Game Gear for one of my birthdays, and that was awesome because I had wanted a Game Gear for years. My cousin had one, so he'd come over. It was a more distant cousin, so we'd only see him for like Christmas. So he'd bring it over, and I was fascinated with it. So I wanted one with Sonic 1. Well, by the time I got it, it was packaged with Sonic 2. And Sonic 2 was a terrible, terrible game. 'Cause I don't know if you know, but like before the Genesis, Sega had the
You
Master
said Sonic
System.
2. You said Sonic 2 for the Genesis or the Game
Game
Gear?
Gear. Game Gear was terrible.
I was gonna
'Cause-
say, I'm like Sega. It was bad on Sega. Oh,
Well, because before the Genesis, Sega had this thing called the Master System, and it did terrible. So like nobody had ever heard of it. And the Game Gear is basically a miniature Master System. So we would just port games over, but the resolution of the screen wasn't as good, so it would be like super tight. So you're playing this Sonic game that was designed for like a normal TV, being scrunched down on this little screen, so you can't barely see a few feet past your face, and it was like just impossible to play. Like I could never even get past like level 3. It was like ridiculous.
yeah, I can't even imagine playing that on a smaller screen. The game's already chaotic on a full screen. I can't imagine trying to play that on a handheld.
And the batteries lasted like 3 or 4 hours, and they'd be dead. Yeah.
And plus, Sega Game Gear did not have Dr. Mario, so sorry, Game Boy wins on that one.
That's true.
That's the sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Ethan Slurpee, I think his name, who
Yeah.
was at. He was in a bunch of Kevin Smith films, and he was in that My Name Is
Yeah.
Earl.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But just interesting.
Is he the one that is trying to find the sailboat in that picture in the mall?
Yes,
in Mallrats?
in Mallrats.
Is that him? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll never find
There
that
you go.
sailboat.
I know
my
we've been
lunch
jumping
episode.
around in this. We have to talk about Night Trap. We have
Yeah.
to talk about Night Trap. I had no idea that. I always assumed it was supposed to be a satirical, campy B movie, sort of. Like, it was making fun of campy horror movies. I had no idea that was not intentional. Because they kept giving him, I think it was Hasbro, they kept giving him directions. I think he originally wanted the bad guys to be ninjas, and they said, no, you can't do that. If it's going to be violent, we don't want the violence to be able to be replicated by kids at home.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, we'll do vampires. And then they said, well, we're not going to give them, like, makeup and stuff. There's too many of them, so we'll put trash bags over their heads or something. So they look like militant zombies or something. And then they say, oh, yeah, no biting. They can't bite anybody. So they have to have this, I forget what they call it. It was like a trocher or something, and it's like this claw with a drill inside that would go inside their necks and then drain out the blood, which sounds a lot more graphic and worse than it actually is.
Kids can't do that. That's fine. Pass.
So I was just amazed that all this time I thought it was purposely a satire. I had no idea that's not what it was intended to be.
Now, did you have Night Trap before all that stuff in Congress went down?
I got it afterwards because I
Right.
remember my dad did not want me having that because he heard all the politicians talk about it, and he would explain it. It did sound like torture porn. But
And how'd you convince them? You're like, no, that's fine. Get it for me.
I
Thank you.
am guessing I probably went to the video game store with my mom and I snuck it by her, and the salesman didn't say anything and let us buy it. And then I remember I wanted to see the infamous scene because I wanted to see what everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
So I saw it happen and I was like, that's it. That's the big
what
deal.
everyone's
That's
freaking out
why
about?
everybody was freaking out.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Well, going back to that,
It's interesting. Like, what you want to say, Cuz?
well, I was gonna go say because that episode was paired alongside I think Mortal Kombat in terms of like
Yeah.
that was their episode touch upon like the ESRB. The it is kind of funny them talking about the violence in Mortal Kombat, mainly just because if you look at, you pull up on YouTube like fatalities from like MK11, I think is what they're on right now, and just all the
My God,
combined
they're
with
so much more violent.
yeah, the
now than
3D
ever.
graphics high definition 3D graphics combined with just people going like, okay, how else can we chop people? What other creative ways can you use to chop people up? I'm pretty
I
sure
mean, to
parents in
be
the 90s would have had heart
fair,
attacks.
coming out with the ESPR rating system, whatever, was a good idea.
Oh yeah, I
'Cause
have no
if
issue
you're
with
a
that. That's
parent
fine.
and you do want to try like Limit, it's like you have no idea. Like, what is this game? What is this game? I have no idea, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, it was a
no,
good idea.
I like the idea of them coming up with the rating system because they had to prove to people that look, it's not just kids playing these games; adults enjoy these games too. So I'm all on board for a rating system for that. So that was fine.
The other thing too is that when that whole thing went down, that's when Sega started gaining a lot more market share because, people wanted the Mortal Kombat on the Genesis instead of Super Nintendo. And you'll notice that on Mortal Kombat 2, the blood is available in the Super Nintendo version.
Yep.
So they like learned their lesson. They're like, crap, we have to go, back to being a little more violent. And Doom came to Super Nintendo in a red
Oh
cartridge.
yeah.
It's funny. Last week when we were doing the pandemic stuff, we're talking about like controversies and things that people get upset about, and this is like exactly that. How people were like flipping out about it. Which, if you look at it in a modern context, it's incredibly tame.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
And even the guy who created Night Trap, he even said some of the politicians, they kind of like, I don't know if he was saying like they actually manipulated some of the footage or they made it seem like it was a lot worse than it actually is in the game.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Hasbro was the one doing, no, you can't have that, can't have that, can't have that, which Hasbro is the people who own things like G.I. Joe, which is
Right.
like they're like a war thing, which they had a cartoon which was, sanitized, but at the same time it's like, I don't know.
Well, maybe it's like
they're,
cartoon versus like real live actors, and all that stuff.
I guess, but if it's still designed for like kids or like giving out like toy, I don't know. It's an interesting. It could have been a different set of executives too they're talking to. Who knows? But like Hasbro like left them high and dry after they demanded all these changes. So
No.
And it was for
Well,
a console that
they're,
didn't exist, right?
Well, it never came out. They're lucky that like very quickly after that, Sega CD, 3DO, all that different stuff came out, and they were able to like move those games over to those systems, and put that stuff out. And I think what was interesting is, did they talk about Digital Pictures? Because Digital Pictures and the guy that owned that, I think he picked up all that stuff for super cheap, like the rights to all that stuff, and was like, just took it all. And then when those systems came out, just a few years later, like he just had like all these like games just ready to go, and was they pretty much launched with like the Sega CD. Sewer
wow.
Shark was one of the games that was going to be on the Hasbro thing.
Great
Night
game.
Trap, And
Yeah, no, they didn't mention that, I don't think.
Yeah, he just took that formula, made a bunch of games. Like, you ever play Corpse Killer?
Oh, yeah.
Killer was really cool. They had a bunch of games. I mean, some of them were real bad, but I have to say,
Ground Zero Texas.
that was a great one. I don't know if Digital Pictures did that one or not, but that one was probably one of the most advanced full motion movies like that.
They don't make too many. I was gonna say, because that was kind of like a weird sort of niche of video games. So the only last modern game developer that I think still kind of did that, or still does that, was the Command and Conquer series. That does where they have the live action actors doing like the cheesy B movie dialogue.
Yeah.
Because that was kind of like one of those sort of like flash in the pan kind of genres that sort of came and went.
Yeah, I'm not saying they're great, but I have a lot of nostalgia for them. I mean, you kind of had to be there because just these systems, being able to play video off of a disc was like amazing. And then the fact that you were kind of interacting with it, like you were able to like shoot something or change scenes. I mean, it was amazing.
It's
Yeah.
making me remember the Sega CD game, Who Shot Johnny Rock. I remember seeing an ad for it, and I'm like, oh, I want this, I want this. It's like Ground Zero Texas. It's like a shoot 'em up game, but it's like
Yeah.
film noir. And it kept getting
Oh,
pushed back. It kept getting pushed back. And I remember we pre-ordered it, and I would call Babbage's at the time. I would say, hey, do you have this game yet? Nope. And then it finally came out a few months later, and I would play it. It would stall. Like
oh
you actually
God.
had to hit the machine to get it to start playing again.
Oh my God.
And it's like, oh, that's why this has been held up for so long.
Jeez. Did you switch out your copy or was it a disaster?
You know what? I think I did bring it back and got another copy, and it's the game. It wasn't a bad copy. It's just that's
Oh no.
clear why they pushed it back for so long. And
Oh
I still can't
no.
believe they released it like that.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah, there you go.
It's interactive.
It means you lost. That's a game over screen.
One of the things I'm surprised they didn't touch on, and maybe this is fresh in my mind because I recently watched this documentary as well, that when Donkey Kong came out, the arcades were big, and they didn't go more into the high score people who were like getting like world records on these video games. And I recently watched King of Kong. I don't know if you guys have seen that.
That's
Highly
fantastic.
recommend it.
One of my favorites.
Hmm.
And that they didn't touch upon that at all. And I know it's not the main focus of this documentary, and maybe they purposely didn't want to distract from what they were trying to do, but it's interesting that they give much mention that people would try to get these high scores and all of that. It was just
Well, maybe because there already was a documentary going so deep into that stuff. And was it this or was it a different? Weren't they going really deep into the guys that were winning like the Nintendo high scores? Yeah, was that this show?
I know they went to a couple of the
Like I thought they were
some of
following
them, but
some kids that had won like first place. And have you ever seen the
Yeah.
movie The Wizard? You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
it was kind of like that where
I've
they were
heard
going to
of
these.
it.
Oh, you should watch it. It's really cool.
with Fred Savage.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say it's really cool. At the
It-
time,
It's I mean, it's like a little time capsule, right? I mean, it's very 80s. It's got, it's all about, Nintendo and got some interesting. It's an interesting movie.
if you guys like Mystery Science Theater 3000, the original guys who were on that riff tracks now, they actually riffed The Wizard. You can buy it on video on demand and watch it with them riffing it. It's hilarious. And they also did Mario Brothers too. I highly recommend.
Surprised that didn't. I am surprised. I know maybe this is kind of like more off topic, and maybe more looking into the documentary what I think it should be instead of what it actually is. But I was surprised they didn't go into like the larger kind of like cultural impact of like video games, more specifically like attempts to adapt video games into movies, because there's been probably I don't know, it always seems like every few years there's always one like big like blockbuster that should be like an adaptation of like a major video game property from
Rampage.
exactly, which they were very clever. Like, look, we're burying the lead, we're hiding the fact that this is based on the arcade game at all. Like very loosely, like there's a gorilla, there's a wolf, and there's a lizard. That's about it.
They did. They tried to downplay that a lot in the game. Like after the movie came out, I think they talked more openly that it's based on the game. But yeah, they were very vague. Like, is this based on the video game? Like, well, there's a lot of inspirations from all different places. It's like,
I mean,
just
there's
answer the
there's
question.
so much they could have talked about. I mean, they could have they could have had this go on for seasons. I mean, what about Super Mario Brothers the movie? Have you ever seen that?
I have.
Oh my God.
Unfortunately.
Horrible,
I thi-
horrible.
I think I heard a story that Bob Hoskins was, I think, drunk most of production.
I
Yeah,
believe that.
definitely.
It was a
It
huge mess of a production.
You should watch
Yeah,
it just because it's so bizarre. It's like, what is going on? How is this any way related to Mario? You know?
You know,
I
Watch
mean,
the
visually that
Retracts
movie is
version.
visually
yeah.
that movie is fantastic, but like in terms of like adaptation material and coherence, it's a mess.
I
I
mean,
like
to be
Dennis Hopper
fair,
in it.
it was so early in Mario's life. Like, there wasn't a lot of like, what does Mario do? What's his favorite food? I mean, like you like knew nothing about him. Now there's been so many games. You
I
kind
just
of like understand like what Mario should be.
Well, yeah, but by that time there were like a few basic things about Mario. Princess gets captured,
Hmm.
Mario goes after her, and Princess is typically Mario's girlfriend. Now let's make her Luigi's girlfriend. That's better. We'll give Mario a Brooklyn girlfriend.
yeah.
Or
They're like underground, and like there's like cars that go drive on electricity, and they're like sparks are going everywhere. Well, I guess it was the dinosaurs didn't die, so there's no fossil fuels.
I
Apparently,
guess.
is what they're doing there.
I mean, there's a lot of like clever little bits in that movie, but it's weird. It's very weird, um, but anyway, way off topic here.
Yeah.
One one you kind of mentioned, Rick, about how this show can go on and on and on. I'm kind of surprised where they stopped at, in so much that it feels incomplete. Which I don't know if they're going to do another season of this or what, because they stopped in like the early 90s, like before they got to like the next revolution with Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation, and it
Yeah.
I feel there's still more things to talk about. I mean, maybe it's more interesting in the beginning. Like I loved how anytime someone tried to hack like Nintendo or tried to do things like not illegally but like around the thing, instead of like suing them necessarily, they hired them on. Like they're trying to do 3D in the Game Boy,
Mhm.
and this
Oh
one guy was
yeah.
able to crack it, and they're like, "All right, you're hired." Like nowadays, that wouldn't happen. They would
Uh,
those
That was
companies would.
very fascinating. There was a lot that this. I mean, I know a lot already because I'm big into this stuff, but there was still stuff in the documentary that I had never seen before. And a lot of the behind the scenes, how they made Star Fox for the Super Nintendo, was just very fascinating. You
It
know?
is it is interesting kind of in that last episode that they did a kind of like it was sort of like a parallel story between the development of Star Fox and the development of Doom. In terms of being like, oh, this is the start of 3D games.
Hmm.
But I do think like if they ever decide like, okay, we're going to do a high score too. I mean, um, like I know there are a lot of like these sort of larger than life figures like that are in like modern game development that I think it would be especially it would be interesting to kind of find out more about a lot of these bigger studios and how a video game production of a video game is no longer just like a handful of guys sitting at computers. It's almost on par, if not bigger than like a Hollywood production.
Hmm.
In terms of like storytelling, like it almost. I mean that's it would have been interesting to kind of cover that where like there seems to be a switch between well now the story is more important than the actual gameplay. The gameplay in a lot of games always feels secondary. You know, it.
Well,
I
and
don't know.
I
They're definitely.
I agree because I feel like I don't want to play video games anymore. I mean, like you want to play Mario, of course, but like I don't want to play video games anymore. I want to experience something. It's a difference. You guys played Uncharted at all?
Mm-mm.
Mm-mm.
A little bit.
Oh my God. Those are some of the best games because that's you feel like you're experiencing like an Indiana Jones type movie, but you're playing it. It doesn't feel like a video game. You know, it's not like a fetch quest like, oh, go here and pick this up and bring it back to me. Maybe I'll let you through this gate. It's like it feels like you're like in a movie, but you're playing it. And that's what I feel like technology has really enabled.
Yeah, the big game for me right now is, I mean, it's been this for a while, is World of Warcraft. And I got excited when they sort of talked about the role-playing games in the documentary series. I kind of wish they went a little deeper into it.
Well, yeah, because they kind of the structure of the whole documentary, is kind of like, oh, you see that pie chart in like grade school of like evolution. You have like the frog-looking thing, and it turns into a monkey, and then turns into like a turns into like a human being.
What?
It's
Okay,
kinda
question. Stop. What school did you go to? Did you go to where they had a frog turn into a human being?
Catholic elementary school.
I think your education failed you.
Most likely, but that's neither here nor there. I know my education failed me, but while my high school, I'm a product of the school system, so got that going for me.
That's standardized testing. I blame.
Yeah. All about them SATs, man. But yeah, kind of going off of your saying, Mike. It is sort of like the whole documentary is framed like an evolution. Like, okay, here's the most primitive, and then we're getting better and better. It is kind of weird that role playing sort of follows like, oh, this is the kind of midpoint of evolution. Where it's like, in many ways, it's kind of like that was sort of like the driving force. It doesn't feel like that ever really got addressed again. It was like, okay,
right.
It's more very, very condensed, and I think that's probably. I really did enjoy this documentary, but that is kind of one of the big flaws. Like, everything's sort of very condensed. Like, it's very much taking these very big, broad topics and trying their best, but.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because I would fast. They could have had 12 episodes instead of 6, at the very least.
Easily. And it was weird which games they decided to cover in terms of. There were some of the big ones, which again I think could have easily, like I said, the Atari, E.T. Atari. I mean, like I said earlier, that got its own movie more or less.
Right.
But then they also spent, I think, in the role-playing one, mainly because I pulled up my notes. They pulled up the Gay Blade.
Yeah.
Where it just looks like a RuneScape knockoff or something. But that got like a whole half an episode dedicated to that, which I never even heard of at all. Like, I don't even know how the producers even found out about this.
Yeah, I never heard of that either. That was that could have been a couple episodes on its own.
Yeah. I like that they tried to make it seem like this Lost Gem was like, no one really knows about this. Like, are you sure? Or did you just find this guy in the street?
I was kind of confused on that too a little bit, where they just kind of going on like, but like if no one knows about this game and he lost his game, but shouldn't someone somewhere, if it was as popular, have a copy of it? Or that was a very strange sort of.
Well,
I don't know what they were trying to.
I think they said, what is it? Okay, near the end of post-production, the producers were contacted by the Schwills, I'm probably butchering that, Schwills Museum in Berlin, which was able to supply them with a copy of the game.
Berlin, somehow that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it was big in Germany.
Just like the Hoff.
Yeah. But it, I can't remember where I was going with that. But I think that could have been a good way to, I think another issue that I've heard discussed, because a lot of this is very sort of, again, it is a retrospective of the past. I do think in terms of like, again, I kind of mentioned this before, like, things I want the documentary to be, but not necessarily what it's supposed to be. I think they could have discussed on the idea, and I've heard this before, in other discussions of like, there are video games that aren't going to be able to be playable anymore just because we're either running out of the physical copies or The hardware itself just is not existing. Like the consoles themselves are just getting rarer and rarer to find. So we're relying on like emulators or ports. I think that could have been at least something that could have been mentioned, especially if like, because like a lot of those old Atari games, like a lot of them are probably lost to time, kind of like how old silent film movies are, a lot of those are lost just because people didn't realize there was a need to try preserve that.
Right, yeah.
Which I'm sure some of them, probably were good, but I'm sure there probably were a lot of them that were just crap. So,
Well, I
but
assume
still,
probably like more PC games are probably lost. I mean, there's just so many PC games, I'm sure there's games that are just gone. Yeah.
that was, I will say, in the last episode, that was a bit that kind of made me chuckle a little bit, where they're like, could PC be a gaming platform?
Yeah.
Which nowadays it's like, I kind of
It's like
almost
the
feel
premier platform just because it's easier to upgrade that stuff quicker than a console.
Right,
Well,
God,
it was
yeah.
like when we were kids, though. It was very confusing. Like because they did talk about the Commander Keen and getting the first 2D game to have smooth scrolling and everything. Because I remember, PCs were really freaking expensive, and they were supposed to be super powerful, but the games they played were almost like super crappy compared to like Nintendo or Super Nintendo. Like, it was like horrible. Like the only game we really played when we were young on computers was like Oregon Trail, and then we didn't even know about Wolfenstein. I just remember like Doom came out and I was like, oh my god, look at that. And I'm like, you had to have a PC for it, but like the rest of the games still kind of were, like a PC they played Doom still couldn't play Super Mario World type games,
Right.
And it was very confusing.
Right, and then back then you couldn't even just pop in the game and play it. You'd actually have to go to like DOS prompt and type in all this weird commands and coding line before you could even play the game.
But it was the first time that we could pirate games.
True.
So I had a friend, and we were like probably in like fourth or fifth grade. Had a friend who knew somebody that somehow was able to dial in to something and pulled games down. So he had all these games, and he would bring them over, and they'd be cracked and stuff. So I had like a racing game. I had like a game where you could make roller coasters and then ride in them. I mean, I had a whole bunch of random games, and the games looked really good. They were 3D games. I had Doom, of course, and all that stuff was pretty awesome on the PC. So it's just fascinating. I think my PC came with Mega Race. Did you remember Mega Race, Mike? It came on Sega CD too.
No, I don't think so. That one doesn't sound familiar to me.
Wasn't that good? But wasn't
Well,
that
then
good?
why are you asking me to remember it if it's not that good?
Wow, it's like I could reminisce with someone.
Well, I'm sorry I let you down there, buddy.
You did again. All right, well, it'll be fine. Moving on.
There was another quick story that I really liked that I didn't know about was the origins of Kirby. I had no idea.
Oh, that was great.
It's based off a lawyer named John Kirby who defended Nintendo when Universal was trying to sue them over the likeness of King Kong.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that later on Nintendo paid him tribute by creating a character named Kirby based off of him. That was kind of cool. I like that.
What's so ironic about the whole thing is that later they do the film Wizard, and in the film they go to Universal and they start crawling around. Like there was a whole scene where they're trying to do an escape through one of the rides, which is has King Kong in it.
Oh right, yeah,
Yeah.
I do remember that.
So that was interesting.
Yeah,
all
that's
comes
one of
full
my
circle.
favorite quick stories from that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought the documentary was really great. I thought it interviewed a lot of people. They got a lot of because you could always do a documentary where you just talk about this stuff, like, oh, this happened,
Mhm.
but they actually get the people, interview them. Like, that's challenging. Especially some of these people are pretty high profile people. I mean, Tom Clancy's just not gonna invite you into his home. Like, I paused the screen when it was in his house and he had all that Sega stuff, and I was like,
Yeah.
what? Tom Kalinske, what does he keep? If you're Tom Kalinske, what are you keeping on your shelves Sega related? And I was like looking at it, I'm like, my God, this is amazing. So I thought it was pretty cool, but I feel like this is just the beginning. Video games have become really popular. Again, collecting and stuff with now that we're older, we can actually afford this stuff. And I think that, I mean, it's it's not like the history of this stuff is copyrighted anyway. Anybody could make a documentary on this stuff. Do you know what I mean? So
Right.
I think we'll just see more and more of it, and I'm hoping we see more movies. Like I really want to see like an early Atari movie. I want to see a Sega versus Nintendo. I'd love to see the whole making of Doom, like a movie like that. All that stuff is very fascinating.
Right.
The guy in his garage building something that changes the world.
Mhm.
Especially if you can do it more than once. That's amazing.
Well, I wonder if they feel this documentary did well, similar to like the Toys That Made Us from a few years back,
Yeah,
if they'll expand it to talk about other stuff that happened
like
afterwards.
I was going. I was trying to figure out when to bring that up, but yeah, that was kind of my biggest feel. Like this feels a lot like I know it's not the same team, but that made that, but but it's very much that same sort of spirit, where it's very much kind of like there's a part of you that's very nostalgic for these things, like, oh yeah, I remember that, or I remember this, but it is also very much kind of like focusing a lot on the business side and kind of like the development side of things, because that I very much enjoyed that show too. And I was like, so I was surprised to kind of look it up. I thought there would be like some sort of connective tissue, but besides
Was
the
the
fact that
narrator the same?
no, actually, that was my other
Sound-
note. Do you guys know who the narrator of the show was?
No, but for whatever reason, he reminded me of Richard Dreyfuss a little bit.
They did not get Richard Dreyfuss, but they did. They were able to hire Charles I'm butchering his last name. Net. He's the voice actor for Mario.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's cool.
okay.
Which, when I saw the name pop up, I remember, I was familiar with that. I was like, oh, that's neat. But I'm surprised they're in the Nintendo section. I'm not sure if it was a weird copyright thing. I'm surprised they didn't have him say any like like a Let's Go or
Well,
all.
let me ask you this, because you were a Nintendo 64 kid.
Uh,
Remember when Mario's throwing Bowser in Mario 64, and he always says something like, what does he say? He says something like, I forget exactly what it is, but something like, "So long, gay Bowser." And it was always like, what the hell is he saying?
I think it's like
saying
King
gay
Bowser.
They say it is supposed to be King Bowser, but they've even slowed it down and listened to it. They're still like, it doesn't sound right, And in how they like kind of remastered it a little bit for the Switch, they took that whole line out.
Huh.
Now he just says bye bye or something.
Maybe
thanks,
just because
cancel
of all the
culture.
controversy.
Yeah, but I remember being a kid and being like, is he saying happy or what is he saying here?
You were trying to wonder if Mario was taking part in a hate crime there, huh?
Yeah, I was not sure what was happening. I was very concerned.
Wow. I like this documentary. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's something I would rewatch, like with The Last Dance. I know they're two completely different topics and two completely different things, but it was still interesting to watch. There were a lot of things I didn't know, especially when they were talking about Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, and Night Trap, especially. That I liked it. But like you guys, I think they could have gone on a little longer, like maybe added a few more episodes.
Well, so I got nothing to say. I'm agreeing with everyone here. I did feel that some of the first couple episodes were a little dry at first, but it definitely picked up. Maybe just more of my interest came. I don't know, but definitely something worth it. It's because it's only like 6 episodes. You can knock it out in a week, or like me, a month. But So
I was the only thing I was going to mention, just kind of give just to acknowledge it. I did appreciate all the little pixel art that they did, much more than when like, mainly because this is the last episode I watched. It's so fresh in my mind when they had John Romero running with like a chainsaw, which I'm like, I always hate those bits of documentaries where it's like,
That was really
okay,
cool.
we need you doing an action, or yeah, like
That
I appreciate the pixel art of showing these dramatizations of events versus the, again, documentaries usually are like, we're going to have you stand in a field and look very contemplative. It's like just stick to the interviews. You don't need to add these other things. You're making these people do ridiculous things just to fill time.
Oh yeah, that was really cool. I did get a kick out of that.
But
all right, well, I guess I'll wrap us up. Oh my God, it's like 9:37 right now. Okay, this will be fun to edit. But so, all right, folks. Well, this has been our high score documentary review, and yeah, I think that'll be doing it for us. So, I'm Nick.
Rick.
Cousin Charles.
I'm Mike.
Oh wait, my line.
Now who's messing it up? Maybe you should
uh,
prepare for this.
I don't prepare for this. Are you kidding me? Get out of here with that.
He'll fix this in post.
Yeah.
I make myself look good. I make you guys look horrible, but
Yeah.
uh,
You just say clips from the other episode, and just add
Yeah.
it in.
I am a stupid moron. So this has been the All New Culture Cast. We'll see you sometime in the future with another episode. Bye. You've been listening to the All New Culture Cast. We try to post new episodes every Monday evenings, 3 to 4 times a month. Check out our backlog. We could be found at allnewculturecast.libsyn.com. You can also find us on Apple iTunes and wherever else podcasts can be downloaded and listened to. This has been the All New Culture Cast, a Saltwater production. Original material, copyright 2020. Thanks for listening.
I think this is where I have to turn in my nerd card. I actually never got around to seeing Avatar.
Have you seen Dances with Wolves?
I've seen that, yes.
You've seen Avatar.